Hello, everyone. If you're planning to apply for the European Commission's Skłodowska-Curie Actions Postdoctoral Fellowship and are seeking for tips and tricks, you're on the right place. This video is made just for you. I will be sharing experiences from my successful application. I didn't get my fellowship funded from the first attempt. I didn't get my fellowship funded from the second attempt. I didn't get my fellowship funded from the third attempt. I did get my fellowship funded from the fourth. Okay, I'm exaggerating now. It was my fourth luck. But I'm not ashamed to say that. I'm actually making it to be advantageous for me and for you. I want you not to make mistakes I've been doing. This is why I believe I'm ready now to give you a mouthful of guidelines, some of which you will not find in other YouTube videos. Shooting this tutorial is actually my way of expressing pay forward, as I'm grateful to those who I have learned from, the same way you will be advised by me. At the end of the tutorial, I will acknowledge them. This is my very first video of this kind. If you like the video, support me by giving a thumb up and subscribing. If you make a comment that you would like to hear more on some particular aspect, I might just do that. Before I begin, I have a disclaimer. My grant application was in 2019, and some minor technical things have changed in the meantime. For instance, the fellowship name. It used to be Marie Skłodowska-Curie Actions Individual Fellowships. Now it's MSCA Postdocs. But you shouldn't worry too much. The stuff I will be talking about is common. If it happens that there is a difference, I will warn you. First, I would like to tell you why I use this official PowerPoint template from my MSCA host institution, University of Nottingham, as there is a special reason for that. Namely, 3 years ago, when I was in your shoes, dreaming on going abroad on postdoc, asking myself if I was good enough, I've been thinking of this presentation, of this video that I'm having now as one of my project impact deliveries. And I had declared in my project proposal something like this: Croats are unsuccessful in getting this fellowship. In case I get this grant, I will offer the Agency for Mobility and EU programs, so the Ministry of Science in Croatia, to tell my successful story and additionally promote the MSCA postdoc program. I don't know if this had any if this idea had impressed the reviewers at all, but I'm telling you to show you how creative you can be in ways to make your proposal more appealing. And here I am. So this is the reason I had to use the university's template. It is one of my project deliveries. Before I start, a few words on me. I'm not a brainiac. My CV is not outstanding, and I don't see myself as a shining star on the science horizon. For instance, my BA, MA, PhD were in the same institution, which is University of Zagreb in Croatia. And that is not the best career path compared to our European peers. The University of Zagreb, after all, is not the top-ranked university. My research is not about super relevant topics like inventing new fuel cells or creating a super vaccine or something similar. Then I started to think on my postdoc when I was 42, not 25. I started to think about it after I had experienced academic bullying at work. This experience had affected tremendously my emotional well-being. I knew back then I have to do something about it. If I want to stay normal, sorry, If I had to stay normal, Tomislav, you gotta do something drastically now. The idea of the most competitive European postdoc program, MSCA individual fellowship, seemed crazy enough. But these unfortunate events were my best waking up pills I could have. My frustration of being molested, my not so shining background was my weapon. I believe I was way more motivated compared to other people who just wanted to make something out of their career. These strong emotions of mine were my nuclear fuel. I remember I was so dedicated to change my career path that I studied thoroughly everything on what the postdoc opportunities are there and similar. My field of interest is social linguistics. It is about the interaction between language and society. I'm studying the spelling reform and changes conflicts. This is about new standard languages, language ideology links, etc. This is the title of my project, and this is the link where you can find more data on my project. And this is also a 3-minute long video on YouTube where you can see a brief overview of the research objectives. My professional web page, Twitter account. I'm active in the Marie Curie Alumni Association in the work group policy, and I often write and retweet about researchers' career stuff, research policy, funding. So check my Twitter and be informed. These are my links of 2 interviews I had given. One is in Croatian and one is in English, with further hints on my MSCA career. I would like to argue now why I think the MSCA Postdoctoral Fellowship Program is the best postdoctoral granting scheme you can find. I've compared it with Fulbright, Newton, Humboldt, and several others. Of course, there are many criteria to compare postdoc fellowships. I will name just 2 of them. By the way, if you think this might be a good topic for my next video, you know the drill. Thumb up, subscribe, make a comment. First criteria is that Fulbright, Newton, and Humboldt are the national fellowships in the first place. They're being funded by national states. On the other hand, Marie Skłodowska-Curie actions are being funded by the European Commission, which and its internationality is strongly proclaimed and supported. For instance, you can choose to conduct your research in any European country or even elsewhere, but you cannot do that with the first ones I mentioned. Second criteria is funding. You have the budget of 19,200 euros for your research. Of course, you cannot equip a lab with this amount of money, but I believe it's large enough to fund, to support your research, such as fieldwork, conferences, training fees, and similar. If you have a family, if you're married, or you're being in a partnership, you will have annual gross salary of 71,760 euros gross. This is likely to be increased in the following years. The good news is also that this amount is multiplied by the so-called country coefficient. It is logical. Not all countries have the same living standard. The highest coefficient has the UK, almost 1.4. And among the EU countries, the lowest has Bulgaria, 0.62. This means your living allowance can vary between 49.5 and 95k gross annual salary. I bet you're wondering now what the average postdoctoral salary is. Ready? Luckily, we have data on this. The survey on 7,600 postdocs in 93 countries conducted by the Nature Journal in 2020, that Nature Journal, shows you that 42% of postdocs earn between 50 and 80,000 gross US dollars, and 38% of those earn between 30 and 50. I will remind you on the figures from the previous slide. Of course, I converted euros into US dollars. It's between 60 and 150K, which is very, very on the top. Now you see why the EU considers this fellowship as its flagship. If you want the best people, you have to invest into them. However, there are some bad things. First, the number of applicants is growing every year, which makes this fellowship a very competitive one. After all, who wouldn't want to have 2 years of research paradise where you would have all the freedom you could have as a principal investigator while being paid adequately? 30% of the funding threshold is low. Humboldt Fellowship, for instance, has double as much, around 25%. I've read somewhere that if the success rate goes below 10%, it is considered more than a lottery than a funding program. To have it funded, your proposal has to be rated with circa 93% of the maximum score. The European Union considers all proposals above 85 as good enough to be funded, but due to the budget limitations, they have to decline, unfortunately. If the EU has enough money, they would fund those above 85 and beyond. So you see, there's a sad gap between 85 and 93. The EU has invented thus something which is called the Seal of Excellence. But I will be talking about the seal a bit later, as I have something very promising, very, very cool to tell you here. In this video, I will not talk about the basic things such as the eligibility criteria, writing style guidelines, similar technical stuff. I believe there are many sources for you to find answers on these questions. First of which is the official website of MSCA Postdoctoral Fellowship. I will focus instead on 2 things in this video, which I find very relevant for you to start thinking. How to select a prospective supervisor and host institution, and how to think of a winning research subject. Well, I started with a top-down approach. It means I made a list of the best social linguistic research centers and groups in Europe that deal with South Slavonic group of languages or with spelling standardization. There are not too many of them, so I didn't have actually very tough task with here. If you are in life sciences, your sun is shining, but at the same time, this top-down approach might not be the best approach, as there are too many of centers and institutions and research groups around. My path was that I browsed a lot. I asked other scholars. I checked who the organizers of the best discipline conferences were, and so on, in order to pinpoint an adequate institution. This is also an opportunity for me to get to know many people. Then I checked how active these research groups were. After the institution, I looked for a main researcher to be my potential supervisor. I didn't follow the logic, the more published publications, the better the change chances. Instead of that, I wanted to be supervised by a person whose expertise fits my training objectives. Please have in mind that in your proposal, you have to be very convincing why you select some specific host institution and not some other. This is very important. Don't be vague about this aspect. When I found my potential supervisor, I had to get her or his attention. I composed a nice PDF document in 13 pages with a cool structure where I wanted to present myself as best as I can. What I want, I described the research plan briefly on few pages. I stated why I would like to research that question. I was straightforward and honest. For instance, I told in this document, I'm not a native speaker of English, and I didn't have this document proofread, as I wanted the reader to have a rough picture of my language skills. I will be honest and tell you that some big catchy names have never replied on my emails, but that was good. This was a message for me to keep looking further on. And I got a positive response from Professor Nicola McClellan. I was particularly excited about her because of two things. The first is that she made a note on her professional website that welcomes collaborations with colleagues and peers. This is a screenshot from her webpage. And that was a promising cue. The second thing I noticed about her is that she had strong points in her CV based on which I was able to see how these could be translated into my career training. For instance, she is a full professor, very experienced in supervising people. She was a journal editor, which means she's experienced in reading other people's manuscripts. And I plan to write a lot. She was a large project co-leader. She could network me with her colleagues. Although Nicola had published in the topic of language standardization, I believe the number of your mentors' publications is really less important. I believe it's way more important how your supervisor fits into your training program. In some other videos, if you want me to, I can describe how we actually collaborated on my during the writing of my proposal, how this process between me and my potential supervisor looked like. This is the second part of my presentation, how to recognize a promising research question. If you want to be recognized among thousands of equally good proposals, your proposal documentation has to shine. I'll be honest and tell you, if your proposal is average, it's likely you won't be funded. Do ask yourselves, why me and why now? These two questions are, you'll have to answer on these questions in your project proposal. So it's better to know to answer those far in advance. I will tell you my case. My project is about spelling conflicts. Since I was one of the Croatian orthographers in 2013, I was unique. I was able to say, look, I know how this spelling standardization works behind the door and fancy marketing. So think about yourselves. Is there anything about you and your work, your research, that makes you unique or more competitive? Why now? Don't get me wrong now, but the more conflict in writing, the better for me. I was lucky that in the previous years, there were some major socio-political issues relevant for my subject. In other words, I was able to say, look, my project is well timed. So the message for you is you have to defend the claim, I need to have my project funded now and not in 10 or 20 years because some reasons. If you manage, you're on a good track. These are my bonus tips and tricks. First, during the writing of your proposal, you will certainly go through emotional roller coaster and ups and downs. Be prepared for those moments. Second, check the Quartet's webpage. It's an official EU website with a huge database of many projects that the European Commission has funded over years in various programs, and be inspired by your peers. Browse the database and filter it using your keywords. I'm sure you might find something that has been considered as the state of the art in your subdiscipline. This is a good way to get inspired. Third, don't forget the main aim of the MSCA postdoc fellowship program. It's not, I have the best research in Europe. Instead, it is, I have the best research in Europe, which will allow me to become a leading and independent researcher after my postdoc ends. You see the difference. The European Commission has this postdoctoral program to secure the new generations of excellent researchers keep coming. You want to say in your proposal, I have an excellent research idea. If I get a high-class training by best professionals, I will be your next star. Fourth, if only I knew this before, I would save 2 years of my time. You don't have to have a research hypothesis. It could benefit you, but it might give you headaches. There are other ways of explaining your research project except claiming a hypothesis. I've learned it hard way. This is the top hint from me, so be careful now. There is a very special reason why you should think about having a host institution located in countries that accept the seal of excellence. You remember the seal I mentioned. At this moment, for the time being, there are 12 countries in Europe that accept the seal, and it's likely this number will increase. Unfortunately for me, I didn't have a suitable institution in these 12 countries. If I had, I would have my research funded in 2018, as I got 88.2 score and the seal. I mentioned that above 85, you'll got your seal. Getting the seal of excellence is a nice token to your CV and for the next year evaluators. But there is more in it. Namely, the cool thing about the seal is that those 12 countries, by accepting the seal, they're actually claiming they're going to fund your research, even though you didn't get your fund from the European Commission, which is a very, very cool thing. In this case, you won't be able to say, I'm a Marie Curie research fellow, but who cares? Your research will be funded and you'll go to your desired institution in among those countries for the period of 2 years. Let me illustrate this with Sweden. They have the best way to deal with it. They're giving you full requested money. You go to the Swedish institution of your choice, and the national country supports your research. Of course, your institution has to be, your research has to be hosted by the institution from Sweden. There are some other countries, Slovenia, for instance, they also accept the seal, but you have to go through some additional evaluation, and they limit the budget for those who have the seal. This seal thing is a smart thing for national countries to promote themselves and to save some money. They don't have to have their own evaluation processes and pay and timely and expensive, etc. They accept the EU evaluators marks, and this is a great way how they intertwine the national with international research project evaluation. What I wanted to say here is that don't despair if you're above 85%. It is likely, and you are hosted by the institution from those 12 countries, it is likely you will have your research conducted. So check those sources. First, you have to know what your NCP, national contact point in your country is. This is the website. You can locate one. That person will help you to go through your to secure other sources for in preparing for your writing, and also could answer many of your questions. This website, Net for Mobility, is an excellent source. The NCPs I mentioned, they are organized within this association and network, and they've written their own guidelines for you, which have been updated for years, and the new version will be published soon as well. Check their guidelines, and also don't forget to check the official EU guide for applicants. The 2021 call is not announced yet, but it will be soon. Well, I'm having this video in a month or so, so you will find the updated version of the guide. And at the end, wish you all good luck. Thumb up, subscribe, make a comment. See you soon.